Chapter 1. The Empire That Owned the Stars. For more than 12,000 years, the galaxy had known only one unquestioned truth. The Karos dominion could not be defeated. Across millions of star systems, countless civilizations had risen with dreams of freedom. Some built magnificent empires of crystal cities suspended above gas giants. Some governments surrendered immediately. Others fought with unimaginable courage. The outcome never changed. The advisors exchanged uncertain glances. Weakness? The Dominion possessed over 50 million warships. Its armies numbered in the trillions. No species had successfully resisted them in over 8,000 years. What weakness could possibly exist? Valor turned toward the panoramic window overlooking orbit. Thousands of warships floated above Karos Prime in flawless formation. Each vessel alone carried enough firepower to erase a planet. Our soldiers have forgotten fear, the Emperor said quietly. They have forgotten creativity. They have forgotten that victory must be earned. Silence filled the chamber. No one dared interrupt. Far beyond Dominion territory, on the edge of an unexplored spiral arm, an automated exploration vessel drifted through the darkness. Its mission was simple: locate new civilizations. Oceans covered most of its surface. One moon, rich biodiversity, a rapidly advancing industrial civilization. Population, approximately 10 billion. Interstellar capability, none. Threat level, insignificant. The probe transmitted its findings across the galaxy. For months, the message traveled through quantum communication relays until it finally reached Karos Prime. The Emperor examined the report with little interest. Designation? He asked. An officer answered immediately. Local inhabitants call their world Earth. The Emperor studied the images. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents, primitive orbital stations, chemical-powered spacecraft. No planetary shield, no warp fleet, no defensive ring. An advisor chuckled. A civilization centuries away from even reaching neighboring stars. Another laughed. Finally, he spoke. How long would conquest require? A military strategist stepped forward. 1 flagship, 3 escort cruisers. Estimated operation time, less than 1 planetary rotation. Another officer nodded confidently. Minimal casualties. Local resistance will collapse immediately after orbital demonstration. The Emperor approved the operation without another word. Dispatch Admiral Zarak. Offer surrender. If they refuse... He paused. The council bowed. No one looked up at the night sky with fear. No one imagined that at that very moment, the greatest empire in galactic history had chosen humanity as its next conquest. The stars above remained peaceful. But somewhere beyond the darkness, an invasion fleet had already begun its journey. Chapter 2. A blue planet called Earth. The journey from Karos Prime to the Sol system took only 12 days through the Dominion's quantum slipstream network. At the head of the invasion force sailed the Imperial flagship Oblivion's Wrath, a vessel nearly 30 kilometers long. Standing on the command bridge, Admiral Zarak watched as the navigation display counted down the final moments of the voyage. 3 minutes to emergence, the navigator announced. The Admiral folded his 4 arms behind his back. This mission will be remembered, one officer said proudly. Zarak shook his head. No. The officer looked confused. It will be forgotten. The bridge fell silent. This civilization is insignificant. The Admiral continued. Tomorrow we will be on another mission. Do not waste your excitement. The officers nodded. Astronomers observed distant galaxies through powerful telescopes, unaware that history was about to arrive on their doorstep. At the International Deep Space Observatory in Chile, Dr. Elena Vasquez rubbed her tired eyes after a 16-hour shift. A junior technician rushed into the control room. "Doctor, you need to see this." She turned toward the massive display. At first, it looked like a sensor malfunction. Then every telescope around the world confirmed the same impossible reading. 4 enormous objects had appeared beyond Pluto. They weren't asteroids. They weren't comets. They were moving fast, straight toward Earth. Within 20 minutes, emergency alerts spread across every major government. Military satellites locked on to the unidentified vessels. Space agencies exchanged frantic messages. No database contained anything remotely similar. The United Nations called an emergency session unlike any in human history. Leaders argued. Scientists demanded more information. Military commanders ordered defense forces to maximum readiness. No one knew whether humanity faced first contact or extinction. "They're mobilizing," an intelligence officer reported. "Expected response: panic. Military effectiveness: negligible." The admiral nodded. "Prepare the transmission." Millions of television screens, radios, satellites, mobile phones, and digital billboards across Earth suddenly flickered. Every broadcast stopped. Every screen turned black. A deep voice echoed across the planet. "People of Earth." The translator flawlessly spoke every language at once. English, Urdu, Chinese, Arabic, Spanish, Russian, hundreds more. No one needed subtitles. Everyone understood. "We are the Kairos Dominion. Your world has been evaluated. You will surrender peacefully. Your governments will transfer authority immediately. Resistance is irrational." The message paused. Then came the sentence that froze billions of hearts. "You have 1 hour to decide." The transmission ended. Across the globe, silence followed. For nearly a full minute, no one spoke inside the United Nations chamber. Then the room erupted. Chapter 3: Humanity's Defiant Reply. The bridge of the Oblivion's wrath remained silent, not because the officers had failed to understand the message, but because they had. 3 simple words echoed through the command deck: "Come and try." Admiral Zarak stared at the transmission log as if expecting it to change. "It must be a translation error," one communications officer whispered. "The Dominion translator has never made an error," another replied. A senior strategist leaned forward. "Perhaps they misunderstood the terms of surrender." Zarak slowly shook his head. "No, they understood perfectly. He had conquered more than 80 civilizations during his military career. He had witnessed desperate negotiations, tearful pleas, and leaders willing to sacrifice anything to spare their people. But never this, never outright defiance from its species that had never fought beyond its own atmosphere. For the first time in decades, the Admiral felt something unfamiliar: curiosity. On Earth, the 3-word response spread across the planet within minutes. People replayed the broadcast on their phones and televisions. Some cheered, others cried. Old rivalries suddenly seemed meaningless. Countries that had spent generations distrusting one another opened direct communication lines. Military satellites, radar networks, and intelligence systems were shared without hesitation. Engineers from competing nations collaborated through encrypted global networks. Scientists released classified research that had been hidden for decades. For the first time in history, humanity stopped asking, "Which country?" and started asking, "How do we survive together?" Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Inside the North American Aerospace Defense Command, generals and scientists gathered around a holographic map of the alien fleet. Dr. Maya Patel adjusted the display. Their ships are protected by energy shields unlike anything we've observed. A general frowned. So missiles won't work. They'll work, she replied carefully. They just won't do much. Several officers looked toward him. They believe we'll meet strength with strength. He smiled faintly. So let's surprise them. A classified operation known only as Project Phoenix was immediately reactivated, originally abandoned years earlier due to budget cuts and political disagreements. The project had focused on unconventional warfare, autonomous drone swarms, experimental railguns, artificial intelligence targeting systems, electromagnetic pulse weapons. None of it had ever been tested in real combat. Now it would decide humanity's future. Factories that once built passenger aircraft switched to military production overnight. Automobile plants began manufacturing armored vehicles. University laboratories became weapons research centers. Thousands of civilian engineers volunteered without being asked. Every hour mattered. Chapter 4. Fire in Earth's Sky. The first battle had lasted only 11 minutes. By every measurable standard, humanity had lost. More than 90% of Earth's orbital satellites had been destroyed. Global navigation systems were crippled. Military communications relied on aging backup networks. Fiber optic cables and shortwave radio. Several space stations had been evacuated, their crews returning to Earth in emergency capsules. Yet the Dominion had expected something entirely different. They had expected surrender. Instead, the blue planet became even more determined. Deep beneath the Swiss Alps, the newly formed United Earth Defense Council convened for its first official meeting. There were no national flags in the chamber, only a single emblem displayed above. The round table, a blue planet, surrounded by 12 stars. Every major nation had sent representatives, but politics had been left outside the reinforced steel doors. Admiral Jonathan Hayes stood before a massive tactical display. "We cannot defeat them today," he said. No one argued. Our missiles barely scratched their shields. Again, silence. But we have learned something far more valuable. He zoomed in on recordings of the alien fleet. They didn't dodge. They trusted their shields completely. Dr. Maya Patel looked at the images. They've become predictable. Hayes nodded. And predictable enemies make mistakes. Across the globe, governments launched the largest industrial mobilization in human history. Automobile factories stopped producing civilian vehicles and began building armored transports. Commercial drone companies converted their production lines to military reconnaissance systems. Even small machine shops volunteered to manufacture spare components. The Dominion observed everything. Aboard the Oblivion's Wrath, intelligence officers monitored millions of human communications. They're reorganizing, one analyst reported. Civilian industries have shifted to military production. Admiral Zarak remained calm. They still lack the technology to threaten us. Should we destroy their factories? The Admiral considered the proposal before shaking his head. No. The officer looked surprised. If we destroy every target immediately, Zarak explained, they will learn nothing. He believed fear would eventually crush human resistance. He wanted humanity to witness the hopelessness of fighting the Dominion. It was a decision he would later regret. 3 days after first contact, the alien fleet moved closer. Gigantic warships entered low planetary orbit. For the first time, people could see them with their own eyes. They looked like floating mountains, dark, silent, impossible. Cities across Earth paused as people gathered outside. Some stared in fear, others clenched their fists. Children asked questions their parents couldn't answer. Are they going to destroy us? No one knew. The answer came at dawn. Chapter 5. Ashes of Resistance. The battle in the Australian outback lasted less than 40 minutes. When the smoke finally settled, the desert had been transformed into a landscape of twisted metal and blackened glass. Hundreds of alien construction machines lay in ruins, their once impenetrable shells cracked open by coordinated railgun strikes and precision explosives. Humanity had paid a terrible price. More than 200 aircraft had been lost. Thousands of drones had been destroyed. Nearly every special forces team that entered the combat zone had been killed or captured. Yet for the first time since the invasion began, the Dominion had suffered meaningful losses. It wasn't a victory, but it proved something even more important. The aliens could bleed. Across Earth, news of the operation spread rapidly. People didn't celebrate. There was too much grief for that. Families mourned sons and daughters who had volunteered, knowing they might never return. Hospitals overflowed with wounded soldiers. Entire air bases stood empty after launching missions from which their pilots would never come home. Still, amid the sorrow, something extraordinary happened. Instead of despair, determination spread. Factories doubled production. New volunteers arrived by the millions. Teachers became engineers. Mechanics repaired military vehicles through the night. Retired scientists returned to laboratories they had left years before. Every loss became another reason to keep fighting. Deep beneath the Himalayas, engineers gathered around the shattered remains of an alien drone recovered during Operation Hammerfall. The machine had survived almost intact. Its smooth black surface was unlike any material found on Earth. Dr. Maya Patel carefully removed a small crystalline component from its center. "What powers it?" asked one of the engineers. She smiled. "That's exactly what we're about to find out." For days, the laboratory worked without rest. At first, nothing made sense. The circuitry appeared almost organic. The energy source emitted no detectable radiation. Conventional physics couldn't explain how the device functioned. Then a young researcher noticed something everyone else had missed. The crystal isn't storing energy, it's directing it. The room fell silent. Dr. Patel's eyes widened. "If you're right." She quickly entered new calculations. Hours later, the computer finished its simulation. The results were impossible. The alien power core produced nearly 5,000 times more energy than a modern nuclear reactor while occupying less space than a human hand. Humanity had just discovered the first piece of technology that could change everything. Meanwhile, aboard the Oblivion's Wrath, the mood had changed. No one laughed anymore. That night, Admiral Jonathan Hayes stood outside the underground command center, looking up at the stars. Many of those stars were hidden behind the enormous silhouettes of Dominion warships. Chapter 6. Engineers of War. For 26 days, Earth had been at war. 26 days of burning skies. 26 days of sleepless nights. 26 days of wondering whether tomorrow would be humanity's last. The Dominion believed they had broken Earth's military. What they failed to understand was that humanity's greatest weapon had never been its armies. It was its engineers. Deep beneath the Alps, inside a classified underground facility known only as Forge 1, thousands of scientists worked in shifts that never ended. There were no windows, no clocks, no distinction between day and night. The only measure of time was progress. Rows of alien technology filled reinforced laboratories. Fragments of damaged drones, Shattered plasma rifles, broken shield emitters, and power crystals recovered from the Australian battlefield were carefully disassembled piece by piece. Dr. Maya Patel walked past dozens of workstations, each occupied by physicists, programmers, metallurgists, and AI specialists. Every discovery was instantly shared across the global research network. Competition no longer existed. Knowledge belonged to everyone. 3 weeks earlier, humanity had barely understood the concept of alien technology. Now they had learned something extraordinary. The Dominion's greatest strength was also its greatest weakness. Their technology was ancient, perfected over thousands of years. Every system followed strict engineering standards. Nothing changed unless approved by the Imperial Science Council. Innovation was slow, safe, predictable. Human technology was the exact opposite. Messy, experimental, often dangerous, but astonishingly fast. A young engineer named Liam Chen placed 2 damaged alien circuits beside a human-built prototype. They spent centuries perfecting one design. He said, "We'll build 5 different versions before breakfast." The room erupted in tired laughter. Project Phoenix 2. Beneath the title appeared a single sentence. Build humanity's first interstellar warship. For the first time, the war would no longer be fought only over Earth. Epilogue. The beginning of a legend. As the Imperial execution fleet entered the Sol system, humanity stood united. They knew the battle ahead would be the greatest in their history. No one knew who would survive. No one knew who would fall. But one truth echoed across every ship, every city, and every heart. Humanity would never kneel. Far across the galaxy, oppressed civilizations looked toward the stars with renewed hope. The war was no longer about Earth. It was about freedom. It was about proving that even the mightiest empire could be challenged. Because sometimes, one small blue planet is enough to change the fate of the universe. The legend of humanity had only just begun. The end.